So we have Vic and myself who have made it here, and Bianca is.
Is this working?
Yes,
it is.
You made
Great,
it.
perfect. Thanks.
Wonderful. And two other speakers. Pam is hopefully in the way. Our team is behind the scene, is helping out with the situation. There, speaking of you, Pam.
All right, happy to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Then the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Lan. What a great talk that was by Julie earlier. We really appreciated hearing from her. And this is going to be a great panel too. Two of my favorite people in the whole world today. Victor Farlie from the city of San Jose, and he's with the Economic Development Department there, and Bianca Bloomquist, who's with the Small Business Majority. And they just both do really great work. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but first, I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative and introduce myself and the organization that I represent. My name is Pam Vavra, and I am, until last month, I was the chair of the Silicon Valley chapter of an organization called SCORE, which is one of the SBA partners that Julie mentioned. SCORE is just really delighted to be part of the SBA's group of partners to be able to help small business owners. And we also help nonprofits as well. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Oh, I thought I had it. Share. Okay, here we go. Screen. And yeah, somebody's got some background noise that they might want to mute themselves. Can folks see my screen yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about SCORE, our missions and our values. SCORE was actually formed way back in 1964, hopefully before some of you were even born. I don't know who is in our audience. But when I present this to my students at Santa Clara University, I get that a lot. But our mission is simply to foster vibrant small business communities. And we do that through mentoring and education. So the kinds of things that we provide in along those lines are free business advice and mentoring. I mean free, unlimited. And we have scores, no pun intended, of mentors who have a lot of business experience to help those that are just starting out or who are hitting a snag, some unfamiliar territory, such as a pandemic. We offer low and actually almost all free business training classes as well. And then in addition to that, we have quite a number of resources that we share with people to help them get started with business plans, financial projections, things like that. We are a national organization. We have over 10,000 volunteers that do this work just to give back to their communities. We are in over 1,500 communities. We have nearly 300 chapters. And thanks to the work that we've done, we've helped to create over 25,000 new businesses, 71,000 jobs, and that's non-business owner jobs. We don't count the business owner as the job. So it's not unduly weighted. And then, but overall, then 96,000 total. We help early stage entrepreneurs. We help people who are starting their business. We also help people, as I mentioned, who are already established in business. Maybe they want to grow their business, or maybe they even want to exit. So we can help people transition from one business to another. Pivot is not a dirty word anymore. We all have times when we need to pivot and make changes. So Our chapter is one of, as I mentioned, nearly 300 chapters, and we are currently officeless. We are operating completely online, although we do hold meetings at various locations that we then rent. Recently, we had a conference that we held for women-owned and minority-owned businesses, and we did that at a rented location. In our specific chapter in the past year, even during the pandemic, we were able to help create over 127 new businesses, 188 jobs, and we provided over nearly 5,000 services. And by that, I mean the classes that we offer and other services as well. So as I mentioned, our local chapter has 65 mentors waiting to serve small businesses, and we provide counseling, whether we can meet in person, even though we don't have an office. We have spaces at the local chambers of commerce that let us use their space, their conference rooms, for example, to be able to meet with clients and counsel them. But we're also happy to meet at your place or at a Starbucks or whatever. And we also will counsel, of course, online, and we're grateful for to have Zoom and Google Meets and things like platforms like that to be able to do video conferencing. As I mentioned, all of our mentoring is completely free. All of our workshops now are almost all free. And we also have roundtables and a number of online resources. This is just a smattering of the list of classes that we offered this year. And we're already generating new topics for next year, particularly on some of the funding instruments that we'll be talking about during the panel in just a minute. So just again, we offer classes in marketing, social media, all the things that you need to help bridge that digital divide as well that we talked about. So I think that's all I will share at this point, but just know that SCORE mentors are available to help you no matter what stage of business you're in, and we are powered by the Small Business Administration, as Julie mentioned. Now, let me see if I can figure out how to stop sharing. Did I stop? All right. Yep. Great. So thank you very much for indulging me and let me brag about all the many great people that I work with at SCORE. And so now I'd like to let Victor go ahead and introduce himself. You want to do that, Victor?
Yes, thank you, Pam. Good morning, Bianca, and I'm very pleased to be able to join you this morning. And hello to everyone who's listening in, wherever you are across the world. This is a great symposium, and very much enjoyed listening to the previous session with Julie Close of the SBA. Pam, thank you for that introduction with an explanation of SCORE, who are very, very important to small business owners here in Silicon Valley and across the United States of America. Just to give you a quick introduction, you can see my name. My job really at the City of San Jose is to support small business and to develop the city's ecosystem for entrepreneurship and the economy. And my role changed profoundly with COVID. And I'm going to give you a little kind of story over the course of the next 45 minutes explaining how the city had to change, how it had to pivot to respond to the challenge of COVID, and what that means going forward as we come out through COVID and recover, and what that means for the condition of our economy, and how we develop a whole new paradigm for the way in which we support small business going forward. Some quick numbers about San Jose. We're just under 1 million people. We've grown significantly over the last 20 years. We've added about 20% more of our population just in the last 20 years. We have 80,000 active businesses now registered within the city of San Jose. And when I analyze who are the 80,000 businesses, we go from the big corporates that have their headquarters here, like Cisco, Adobe, eBay, to 50,000 people who run their business from home. So we have these hidden entrepreneurs, all engaging in secondary forms of activity and income, but they are this runway to tomorrow's entrepreneur and startup. So we have this huge iceberg, as I describe it, of very visible corporates, and then a very invisible large number of small entrepreneurs who are either working in tech or non-tech industries, all searching for success in their own particular field and industry. So it's a very active economy here in San Jose, and one that's always moving in different directions as the capital of Silicon Valley. Now, the way in which COVID impacted our economy was to shock the economy, because a number of businesses faced a choice. They were either having to close for several months, and the consequences of that closure forced a great deal of pressure on those businesses. And I'll talk when we get into the detail, Pam, about the question of access to capital, which is this topic. Or some other businesses didn't stop. They simply transitioned online and they expanded. And a number of manufacturing businesses that are here in San Jose simply had a record year in 2020 and 2021 as orders just increased exponentially. Whilst other businesses, say in restaurants, had to close for 3 or 4 months as their premises were not able to accept people coming in because of COVID restrictions. And so they had to find online solutions to attract customers. And so the overall effect of COVID was to dramatically increase the business owner's need to create an online offer, to be able to sell to customers, not just through the opportunity of walking into a physical location, but to really develop the market online through digitization. And so the digitization of our economy took a huge step forward in San Jose, in part the pressure of having to survive, and in part the pressure of having to grow. And every business owner that I've spoken to over the last 2.5 years tells their personal story of how they had to respond to that challenge, and how as a city we had to then respond to finding the right solution or answers. And it really moved forward the whole debate about the importance of organizations such as SCORE and Small Business Majority, who can come to the assistance of a business owner with advice, or to lobby important people like politicians about why we need new levels of support. Let me just add one final point, then I'll hand over to Bianca as an introduction. What has the city's focus been for the last 12 months on access to capital? The essence of San Jose really is to protect the commercial property market. We did not want to see a large number of evictions as a result of people owing rent as a consequence of the experience of COVID, because of the pressures on cash flow. And many business owners engaged in negotiations with their landlords and property owners to protect themselves during that period. And what the city wanted to do was to ensure that we really minimize the number of evictions, because if we had a large number of evictions, we were going to lose jobs, lose businesses, and lose wealth. And so our focus over the last 12 months has been to design business grant programs. And those grants are there to support the landlord and the tenant to be able to pay rent debt. And that has been a very, very important part of the city's strategy to support small business. And I'm very happy to get into the detail of that, Pam, as we go through. But that was the San Jose approach. We had, as I say, these 80,000 businesses, all experiencing very different outcomes as a result of COVID, and the city had to respond with a new paradigm of support. I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Victor. And all our businesses are so grateful for all of the work that the city of San Jose does to bring these programs to the people that need them the most and make it available. All right, Bianca, take it away.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Victor. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Good morning to you. My name is Bianca Blomquist. I'm the policy director for an organization called Small Business Majority. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We have offices throughout the country, but we have a historic presence here in California. And in fact, in addition to my policy work, which is statewide, I direct outreach operations for Northern California, including San Jose and Silicon Valley. So thanks so much for having me on today. I'm especially excited to be on this panel with Vic and Pam. Our three organizations have worked very closely throughout the number of years to make sure that small business owners have access to all of the free and low-cost resources that they need to thrive in their local communities and part of a larger economy. Provide quality jobs, not just for their workers, but also for themselves. So many of the folks that we know contribute to our economy identify as self-employed individuals. And I think that's really key here. I actually have a couple of slides that I put together underscoring some of the digital divide and digital transformation trends that we're identifying among small business owners in California. I'll go ahead and share my screen afterwards, but a little more about me and my work. In addition to participating on panels like today, we bring to small business owners education, access to resources on everything under the sun related to access to capital, including helping small business owners avoid predatory lending, but also identifying tax credits that might be suitable for some businesses. We also engage in quality jobs work, so helping small business owners identify and navigate the myriad of health insurance options that are available for them through Covered California on the individual marketplace, but also Covered California for small business. November 1 marks the first day of open enrollment, and we know half of ACA enrollees nationwide are employees of small businesses. So if there's a healthcare conversation, we believe that small business owners deserve a seat at that table. Last, we also engage on issues related to equitable competition. So making sure that small business owners can play on a level playing field, in particular, can play on a level playing field with their larger counterparts. We know that these larger small businesses, in fact, even those folks that have 100 employees, look a lot different and have different needs than a small business that has less than 50, 25, and actually less than 10. The average size of a small business in our network has 4 employees. So this is really key, and excited to chat in greater detail with Pam and Vic, and a huge thanks to Lan at CyberTrust. We're so excited to be here, and we really appreciate underscoring the importance of digital divide issues when it comes to small business owners' ability to compete in California.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. I wanted to also mention that there are a couple of other organizations that bear mentioning. One that was planning to be with us but couldn't at the last minute, and that is the State of California Assembly Jobs Committee. Toni Symonds was planning to be with us, and she was gracious enough to provide us with some tips that we might consider talking about. But there's another element to this, and that is the educational organizations. As some of you realize, educational organizations such as San Jose State University, Santa Clara University, and others are increasingly involved in helping young people or alumni start new businesses and get involved, some in venture capital, and I work with an organization at Santa Clara University that does that, an accelerator program there. But San Jose State has a similar initiative to work with business owners that are looking for rapid growth opportunities. But again, my point is that there are a number of other organizations in addition to ours that are available to help small businesses bridge the digital divide, and they have active programs engaged in doing that. The one that that also Lan mentioned in the introduction to this panel, that Toni Symonds at the Assembly Jobs Committee urged us to talk about, is of course the brand new state small business credit initiative. So I wonder, Bianca, perhaps you could give an overview of this SSBCI, as the acronym would have it be, the State Small Business Credit Initiative, and how it will provide opportunities that will trickle down, at least eventually, to the small business owners.
Yeah. Okay. Happy to do that. I'm not totally sure how many folks are on this call, but I'd like to start out just by making it very clear that the State Small Business Credit Initiative program is not a loan program. This is not a grant program. This is not a program that small business owners need to necessarily be on the lookout for or apply to. The State Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI, is it's a federal program that was reauthorized by way of the American Rescue Plan, and it allocated $10 billion for U.S. Treasury to then divvy out to the 50 states that would need to apply for those funds to have access to those federal dollars, so states can incentivize small business lending in their state, whatever that looks like. This was a program that was originally launched as part of the American Jobs Act in 2010, and so because it was a simple reauthorization as part of the reconciliation package, this new iteration looks pretty much the same. It is a 10-year program for which states apply to the federal government, specifically U.S. Treasury, to let Treasury know, listen, we want to have access to these funds to incentivize small business lending in our states, and this is how we will do that. States have a lot of latitude as to how they make those dollars work, what kinds of programs they uphold, or they either start or invest in. But the goal of SSBCI is to ensure that these dollars reach very small businesses and small businesses that are considered SETI populations, which is a socially, economically disadvantaged individual. So lots of latitude there. As long as they're reaching very small businesses and SETI populations, then the U.S. Treasury has been approving those applications from the states. Here in California, the state agencies that are managing this program are called iBank and the State Treasurer's Office. That's pretty much what we know. iBank has received $1.1 billion to incentivize small business lending. But again, this is not a program that will be made available directly to small businesses. What we're hoping it will do is reach community lenders throughout our state and enable those CDFIs and responsible mission-driven lending organizations to make more loans to small business owners who need it.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for explaining that. So small business owners would be looking to their more traditional lenders, their iBanks, their community funds and things like that to be administering those loans. Great.
Yes and no. So iBank oftentimes operates similar to the SBA. They guarantee loans. State Treasurer's Office has a small dollar financing program called CalCap that small business owners may or may not be aware of. But what small business owners need to know is get in touch with your local community development financial institution, your local community lenders. You can go to ventureize.org, reach out to Pam, reach out to Vic, reach out to Toni, any one of us, and we'd be happy to get you connected with the CDFI in your community. But those are the organizations that should be receiving these investments and might be coming up with new products or programs for small businesses.
Great. So, Victor, I know that you have a lot that you could be talking about. I'm hoping that one of the things you might touch on is the Silicon Valley Recovery Roundtable. It recently produced a very long, very comprehensive, and I found very illuminating report on how businesses in the Silicon Valley can forge a path back to normal, if you will, or become a better normal for Silicon Valley. Is this something that you could tell us a little more about and maybe give some highlights of the report and how you see those highlights impacting small businesses in our area?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So why establish a recovery committee? And the answer to that was that COVID impacted everyone. And so therefore the city had to engage everyone and the different interests and groups within the city to feel part of how to recover. And so the city took a kind of huge, in a way, gamble, you could say, in wanting to form a group of people with more than 50 different organizations and interests to come together in the recovery roundtable, excuse me, to form a consensus about how you do that. And so the output of that, Pam, was the document that you've referred to, and I'll put that in the chat in a moment. And now the key thing within that, as a kind of lesson learned, as a kind of process for how you bring a local jurisdiction and its community and business together, is the way in which you engage people. And I think that was really the key message for the city, is to listen and to learn from listening. And as a consequence of listening and learning, you're able to produce, I think, the quality of that report. And the outcome is that people trust you. Fundamentally, they can see within that document that the city is trying to improve, not simply refer to the status quo of what went on before, but to learn from the experiences that people went through during COVID, and how you begin to create a city for all, where the economic opportunity exists for all, and for how you have to build that. It doesn't just appear. So what the key recommendations, Pam, in that document, I think, refer to for small business in particular is access to responsible lending, as Bianca was referring to, and the city's role in bringing out all the different financial interests that exist to form a kind of collective in the way in which, although individual banks will naturally compete with each other, they all share in common a responsibility to engage with a business community and provide a service that allows business owners to know what is the right option for them. And the right option may be to accept a loan, but the right option may not be to accept a loan. So the critical importance here is the connection between access to capital and services. Organizations such as yours, Pam, that provides this critical advice to the business owner, that can provide kind of the sense in which the business owner can trust that advice, and therefore say, yeah, taking a loan is the right way to go, or actually on balance, no, let's wait and see. Perhaps I don't need to take on debt in this way. And so this connection between having a very competitive lending environment that is responsible, allied to good services that are easy for a business owner to find, and that's been one of our other challenges, that business owners didn't know who to turn to, so they call the city. And in turn, the city being able to make a good referral, that if you called me, I could talk to you, I could understand your business need, and then I would go, I know who you need to go and talk to. And so the responsibility of the city there that we've tried to capture in that document is to be a facilitator. We're not going to always have the money to do the things we'd love to do, but we can be good at facilitation and bringing people together. And that's really the essence of this sort of emerging paradigm between having good networks between businesses in different neighborhoods, different interests within those neighborhoods. I haven't really said much about who lives in San Jose, but essentially within the neighborhoods, nearly 40% of people living here are Asian, 30% Hispanic, 25% white. So we have a very interesting mix of people who now live in the city of San Jose, and 40% of the people weren't born in the United States. People come here as first-generation immigrants, and they want to establish a business, and they want to establish something for their family to inherit. And so entrepreneurship is one of those themes that unites and unifies people of different cultures and backgrounds. And so networking is a very important component here, allied to the services, access to capital. And we'll go on to talk about digitization, but if you in a sense, this conference now is a good example of digitization, that I think if we turn the clock back 5 years, we're very likely to have been in person in a physical location presenting. Now our reach is global. And I think the power of digitization is this new component that's building into a local ecosystem to have these 4 elements coming together. And so the roundtable, Pam, is a way in which the city is trying to sort of wave the flag. This is the direction of travel. This is the road we want to go down, and we want to take people with us as we build out that paradigm. I'm sorry that was a bit lengthy, but it was kind of, I wanted to try and be able to capture the flavor. And it was done under a lot of pressure, because people, you know, truthfully, the last 2.5 years have been very, very stressful for different business owners, depending which industry you're in or which location you're in. And the city had to work really quickly. And just to finish on access to capital, we did some numbers recently. We downloaded the government's federal statistics, and we just went over $3 billion as total number of loans and grants that were attracted to San Jose businesses over the last 2.5 years. And we think that by being very, very focused in our desire to drive business owners to apply for these loans and grants, made a critical difference in San Jose, that we didn't have a high number of business closures, and that we were able to protect businesses as far as possible. But those businesses that survived, of course, now carry debt in their balance sheet. And so the way in which this is now playing out is that as we go into late 2022 and early 2023, many business owners will be looking at the cost of capital as interest rates are rising. And so that's the kind of way in which we have to think ahead. I'll stop there. Pam, thank you for
That's very helpful.
You for the question.
Well, and that leads me into 2 different directions of thought. One is maybe Bianca and you can weigh in a little more on this, is what can technical providers such as SCORE do to help businesses demonstrate their credit worthiness, or be better able to analyze the various resources that are available to them to be able to make really thoughtful and informed choices?
Yeah, I can jump in. It's tricky because there's only so much that technical assistance providers can do in working with the systems and structures in place that prevent small businesses from accessing affordable capital in the first place. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think just continuing to raise awareness about the community development financial institutions that exist, referring small business owners to those programs. Vic talked about the demographic and cultural makeup of San Jose. I think making sure that our education and resources is culturally appropriate and taking into consideration the varying degrees of how people view debt. I think we all know that not everyone perceives debt to be a necessary thing as part of a business. And so really getting at some of those concepts and narratives can be helpful while you're doing that education and outreach. But listen, I mean, small business owners have historically struggled, especially business owners of color and women business owners have historically struggled to access capital. Even before the pandemic, 1 in 4 businesses didn't have any relationship to a traditional lender. By the way, when a traditional lender, I'm talking about, Wells Fargo, your credit union, JP Morgan Chase, like your bank, right? And And even those who did still struggled to get PPP loans. You know, the requirements that go into and the time commitments it takes to access these traditional loans are onerous and not always responsive to or reflective of the needs of the small business communities that we work with. That being said, I think it's important to understand and know the role that government has to play in all of this. You know,
that was my next question. Yes.
I mean, you asked about, you know, you talked about iBank earlier, and I mentioned that they're a guarantor. You know, one of the reasons why we're watching these SSBCI dollars so closely is because we believe that the state of California has a responsibility to help these small business owners who don't have a certain credit score, who don't have the personal guarantees or the collateral that is required of traditional lending institutions, that don't have those tools and resources to access responsible and affordable loans to help them grow their business. And so, you know, there's only so much that SCORE can do aside from continuing to raise awareness that there are programs that exist, but those programs that exist need help. I mean, Vic mentioned the rising interest rates. We have an amazing product, the California Rebuilding Fund Loan, which is tied to the Wall Street Journal prime rate plus 1%. So, you know, rates have gone up across the board. I don't really think, unless anyone has Jerome Powell on that there's much we can do about that. So that now we must turn to the state of California, and we're going to say, okay, state of California, how are you going to use your purchasing power to help the small business communities throughout our state access those loans? So coming up with innovative solutions like the California Rebuilding Fund, coming up with innovative solutions that leverage public and private dollars to help make more loans available to small business owners is really where I see so much of the work still needing to be done there. And, you know, and this is, I'm just talking about the state government here. You know, SBA has its own requirements. SBA also enjoys a lot of really great name recognition. We all love Julie Close. We all know Julie. Small business owners know of the SBA. And so, you know, working with Julie and sharing folks' experiences that SBA might consider a direct lending program like they did with economic injury disaster loan. I mean, it was, you know, SBA, it was somewhat of a departure from their regular normal line of business that was wildly successful, in part because the SBA is a trusted institution. So what conversations are happening at a federal level as well to allow the SBA to make more direct loans to small businesses?
If I may chime in, Pam, that's exactly what Lorena earlier also mentioned, digital as capital. It's basically, right, Bianca mentioned about innovative ways. So if the policymakers also think this way, potentially, say previously $10,000 can help one small business stay in business, right? The CARES Act. But now, if the policymakers also include, digital as capital, let me also include some ways to help the small businesses leverage digital capabilities. Then the same amount of $10,000 can now help 10 small businesses instead, because along the way, the small businesses are getting more businesses through the digital channels. We have done so for some small businesses. One example is that one lady in a nearby town of Los Gatos to close her women's clothing store during COVID. And we helped her launch their business online. Previously, they just had a, say, Facebook page, but that's not really e-commerce, right? And so, my team helped her launch the business online. And within 3 weeks, they were able to generate thousands of, over $1,000 of revenue. So that right now, our nonprofit, just same as SCORE, Pam.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking that organizations like ours can collaborate, thinking about combining, like Julie said earlier. We can work together and enable more businesses like that to go reach. Yeah, that is digital as capital.
And another organization that really helps with that, I mentioned that there are some other organizations that could have rounded out this panel even more, but we wouldn't have had enough time to cover them all, I suppose. But in addition to the SBDCs, the Women's Business Centers, there's also the San Jose Public Library, which has been a phenomenal partner at helping business owners bridge the digital divide with programs that help them understand e-commerce. And I know that Bianca and maybe Vic are familiar with Source Diverse, Source Local, playbook, etc. So
I think, Pam, that what we've learned from COVID is two things, just to connect back to what Lan was saying, what you were saying. Firstly, the importance of trusted advice. Who you turn to as a business owner and say, hey, I've got a question I don't know the answer to. And digitization can often be one of those questions. Who do I go and talk to? Whose decision making do I trust? Where do I go to buy the right solution for my business? And that's why I think, Lan, you do a really important job here, because you cut through and offer a direct service to people that allows them to sort of relax and go, I'm confident to make that decision. Yeah. And I think that what we're seeing, and it comes back to you, Pam, with SCORE, your volunteers are fundamental to building a trusting relationship with the business owner that gives them the confidence to make decisions, big and small. And then what the city can do is really to broaden access to what you do, to enable your organization to become known to more business owners. So the importance of access, promotion, communication here is really moved on in the last 2.5 years. So the responsibility the city faces in connecting Lan, Pam, Bianca together is how we collaborate and how we present that as a way that a business owner would find, oh, that's attractive, I'd like that. How do I make it now easy for the business owner to contact you, Pam? And we've had to do that in a way Bianca was describing, because we have to work in multiple languages. Literally, Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese have become norms now for the city to communicate, as well as
and not just language, if I could intersperse, but also the cultural differences.
Yes,
it's not just language; it's a whole cultural difference in understanding and in practice.
Exactly, and we're I think at the start of that journey. Yeah. We're having to change. So I now manage a team of 3 people, one of whom is Vietnamese speaking, one is Chinese speaking, one is Spanish speaking, so they can converse directly with a business owner in their natural language, and therefore be able to have a much better quality of conversation that enables them to make a referral to an organization, say, hey, this is who you should go and talk to. And then we're trying, it's difficult, but we're trying to work with organizations to create a new voice for different communities, whether that's based in a neighborhood or a particular group of people. And so we've invested heavily in, say, an organization called the Latino Business Foundation of Silicon Valley to try and bring together people who want to be part of that organization. And next year, we'll be looking at the Vietnamese business community and ways in which we can support them directly. And I'm also talking with the Chinese business community through other organizations such as the Minority Business Development Agency, who in Silicon Valley have great relationships within the Chinese business community. So it's kind of being pragmatic, I think, fundamentally, if you're a city, knowing who you have, such as yourself, Pam and Bianca, who are in this field, collaborating, and then trying to draw out where you can add most value to supporting you. And so it's not a leading relationship, it's a supporting relationship that I think cities have to kind of develop as. And then the connection with access to capital is that what we saw is about a 40% take up of loans and grants if you had a head count of less than 10, and a 75% take up of loans and grants if you had a head count higher than 10. And so our kind of current thinking is, how do we develop a better message and a better service offer for our micro business community? Because they are the people that traditionally have not taken up the opportunities that have been available to them. And so that's our kind of next sort of, what do we do next question.
Can I just pick up on that? What Dick is talking about, next steps and moving forward and making that explicit connection to, you know, digital transformation, digital divide issues, and digitization of small businesses in general. We just released a survey a couple weeks ago that demonstrated that 3 in 10 businesses plan to implement new digital tools or a significant technology overhaul in the coming year. One of the things that I thought was very interesting about our research is that turns out a lot of businesses did have a website. There wasn't a huge uptick of businesses creating a website in response to COVID-19, but where there was a greater increase was small business owners utilizing social media. And so, you know, I know that SCORE and the Small Business Development Centers and Women's Business Centers are really great in tackling some of these issues about, you know, social media, as well as, you know, e-commerce perhaps. But there are some structural issues as well that I think are really important when we're talking about the digital transformation that has occurred and is going to continue to occur. But access to broadband, I mean, I know is like not the sexiest conversation ever, but it does touch on both urban and rural small businesses. And just because you have access to the internet doesn't mean that it's reliable or quality or fast enough for you to compete. I also want to underscore, you know, the issue of vertical competition in the marketplace when it comes to small business owners being able to sell online. We all know that the practices of certain e-commerce websites like Amazon make it very difficult for really small businesses to gain a competitive edge and actually compete in those marketplaces. So what are those policies and those structures we're looking at that not only allow small businesses to access new markets by way of, you know, investing in their website and their social media, but actually just participating in the first place? And so I think that we would be remiss to have a conversation about digital transformation without talking about broadband, competition, antitrust, and consolidation as well.
Yeah, I think they're really key strategic points, Bianca. And I think I would say that there's sort of 2 or 3 things that are at this point concepts that we'd be very interested to think about. One is this notion of a digital shop local, that you almost recreate at a kind of local level the capacity for different small businesses that otherwise couldn't engage with, if you like, the Amazon offer, to almost recreate in a neutral way the local market and the local marketplace digitally, and by doing that through a jurisdiction, working with partners, you create, I think, a standard, a safety, and a security that otherwise would have been out of reach for very small businesses. So I think the notion of digital shop local is something I think we're going to see emerge. We don't have a proposal as yet, but I can see that bit by the way in which people talk to the city, that they want that kind of sense of engagement in digitization as e-commerce in a way that enables them to sell more broadly without having to go in the kind of corporate direction currently. And the second one is a digital fund. It wouldn't surprise me and it would be very interesting to see if this comes from the state, because you cross that urban-rural boundary by thinking from the state downwards. So I'd be very interested to see how the governor and the assembly think about this, that we have a state digital fund that allows a small business to almost match dollar for dollar to, say, a certain limit, so that they can upgrade their digital capability. And that would be really interesting to see how that plays out if we could get a digital fund. and target it in certain ways into certain types of either location or industry that we know historically have either been underserved or not had access to funds. And I think that gives everyone a good opportunity to move more into this digitization of commerce and trading and customers. And I think we don't have it now, but I think that would be fantastic if someone, you know, if the governor were to be brave enough and to run something as a pilot and see what happens.
That's an interesting idea. Too bad Toni isn't here to comment on on what her committee might be thinking about that, in fact. But I think we can take that back to her for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Victor. Great thoughts on that. I'm wondering if anybody in the audience has any suggestions or questions. We're getting close to the end of our hour here, and I want to make sure that the audience has a chance to weigh in. Anybody got any questions for our amazing panelists today?
Pam, well, we get to questions from the audience. May I comment on Vic's point about the digital fund? That
Yes.
really is amazing. And as the organizer of the conference, for sure, we as a panel together can relay that message back to Toni. And my second point is that to Vic's point, there are already tools available to facilitate digital fund. For example, there is a company, CityCoin, and there's another company also that one of the neighboring government, San Mateo County, actually is already using to match the digital fund. They used the CARES Act fund to provide dollars to small businesses so that people can buy online from the small businesses. And it's matched. Yeah, the small businesses can receive the credit. So there are tools like that. And Vic, in the last round of proposal that city issued out, some of the proposals I am part of one, I know, also included that in the proposal to try it out, right? As a buy local basically campaign with the digital capabilities in place.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'd like to connect in the universities, Pam, because I think the universities bring a level of expertise and resource that, say, the city doesn't have. We're a small team that has to service a big city. And having universities that have the tradition, the history, and the expertise on our doorstep, and that can be anywhere in the world. I think a university plays a really, really important part in fostering a stronger economy and engaging people in that economy. And so I think what we're likely to see over the next year, if this was a conference in, say, a year or in 2 years' time, Lan, is perhaps coming back and saying, we tried this project, here's a pilot, this is how far the conversation has gone, what have we learned? Because I think we're going to see these new ideas through digitization coming more into the sort of forefront of people thinking, I understand this now. We should be doing this. How do we resource it? Who are the right people around the table? How do we evaluate as a pilot what's working and what's not working? And therefore, how does that inform public policy at a state level and at a local level? And from a Silicon Valley perspective, you know, why come to Silicon Valley is an obvious question to ask if you're an entrepreneur. And the answer is because you have an ecosystem based on talent and money that is relevant to what you want to achieve in life. And that's where I think the nature of collaboration and competition sits, whether it's access to capital, services, digitization, and networks. That's how it's brought together in a way that we all have a collective responsibility to make work. And when it doesn't work, understand what should come next. And that's how I think I always view my relationship with Bianca and you, Pam, that when I need to understand something, I'll come and ask you. And that enables me to then learn and then develop something that I think we can try locally to discover. And then I think the big question and the Silicon Valley question, which is what I think differentiates us from other parts of the United States, is our ability to scale.
Yes. Thank you, Victor.
And you see that in the way in which technology.
Bianca, we are at the end of our hour. I would like to just combine use our new keyword, combine, and say that I think the idea of combining the sentiment to buy local and with the digital component as well for the ease of use and convenience of the buyer is a really great idea and something to be explored. And the other thing that I really liked about you mentioning the Silicon Valley experience is also one of experimentation and not being afraid of failure, right? That's another hallmark of the Silicon Valley experience. So thank you very much, Bianca and Victor. Bianca, did you have any last minute words you'd like to convey?
No last words. Just thanks, Pam, for having me. Thanks, Lan, for setting and facilitating these amazing conversations. And I appreciate to working with all of you in the coming year on bridging the digital divide and helping small business owners access the responsible.
Yes, and thank you for all your tremendous advocacy and making sure that the federal, state, and local governments are informed of what they can do to make the best use of the dollars that they have to distribute. Thanks again.
You're a champion. You're a champion, Bianca.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lan.
Thanks, Pam.
Oh.
Thank you.